The shotgun blast echoed through the cornfields like God's own thunder. But it was just old man Hargrove's way of saying goodnight to the coyotes, or maybe to the ghosts that haunted his porch swing. Thomas froze mid-step on the gravel driveway, the metallic tang of blood hitting his nostrils before he even saw the body slumped against the rusted pickup, its flannel sleeve stained dark. "You think you're the first faggot to bleed out here?" Hargrove's voice rasped from the shadows, whiskey-slurred and venomous, as Thomas's world tilted into the abyss of what his brother had left behind. Thomas's heart hammered like a piston in his chest. The kind of fear that roots you to the spot, makes your knees buckle without mercy. He'd come back to this godforsaken patch of Ohio dirt for one reason: to bury Alex's secrets before they buried him. But secrets, he was learning, had a way of clawing their way out, teeth bared and hungry. The drive from Cleveland had been a blur of rain-slicked interstates and half-heard country ballads on the radio. The kind that crooned about lost loves and dirt road redemption but never quite nailed the ache of family fallout. Thomas gripped the steering wheel of his beat-up Ford F-150 until his knuckles bleached white, the dashboard clock mocking him with its relentless 2:17 a.m. glow. He'd left the city lights behind 2 hours ago, trading dive bars and anonymous hookups for the suffocating embrace of Milford, Ohio, population 4,200 souls. Give or take the ones who'd fled like rats from a sinking ship. Alex had called him 3 weeks back, voice cracking over the line like thin ice under boots. "They're gonna kill me, Tommy. Or worse, make me pray it away." Thomas had laughed it off at first, the big brother bravado kicking in automatic. Bullshit. Dad's all bark. Pack your shit and crash with me till you sort it. But Alex hadn't packed. Instead, he'd spilled it all: the late-night confessions to Mom over lukewarm Folgers, the Bible-thumping intervention in the living room where Dad had hurled slurs like grenades, abomination, perversion, you're no son of mine. By dawn, Alex was gone, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, hitchhiking toward some queer-friendly utopia in San Francisco that existed only in fever dreams. Thomas stayed. Not out of loyalty. Exactly, more like a masochistic tether. The invisible rope of blood that yanked him back every time he tried to cut loose. He was the good son. The straight-A farm boy who'd traded football scholarships for a mechanic's grease under his nails. The one who nodded along at Sunday sermons and mowed the lawn without being asked. If Alex was the lightning rod, Thomas was the quiet storm cloud, brooding and inevitable. Pulling into the driveway now. The Hargrove place loomed like a bad memory across the fence line, sagging porch, peeling paint the color of regret. Thomas killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the cricket's chorus into a dirge. He hadn't planned on stopping here. But Alex's last text burned in his pocket: Hargrove knows. About me. About us. Don't come back. That word had been a grenade pin pulled months ago. Back when brotherly bonding over stolen beers in the barn turned into fumbling hands and whispered apologies in the hayloft. It wasn't love, not the Hallmark kind. Anyway, it was survival. Two boys adrift in a sea of judgment, grasping at each other like lifelines in the dark. He stepped out, boots crunching gravel, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and distant manure. The shotgun's echo still rang in his ears, a phantom from Hargrove's ritual hunts. But tonight it felt personal, like a warning shot across his bow. Thomas's breath came shallow, his chest tight under the flannel that smelled faintly of motor oil and regret. He should turn around, Floor it back to Cleveland where the nights blurred into forgettable faces and the days paid the rent. But Alex's ghost tugged harder, whispering stay even as it screamed run. The front door creaked open before he could knock. Mom's silhouette framed in the yellow spill of kitchen light. Her face crumpled like tissue paper when she saw him, eyes red-rimmed, hair a gray-streaked mess pinned back with trembling hands. "Tommy," she breathed. The word half prayer, half plea, as she pulled him into a hug that smelled of lavender soap and unspoken sins. Dad was in the recliner, nursing a Budweiser, his gaze fixed on the TV's muted infomercial glow, pretending the prodigal hadn't returned. "You're back," Dad grunted finally, not looking up. "Thought you'd gone soft like your brother." Thomas swallowed the retort, the old script flipping open in his mind. "Yes, sir. Just needed some air." Instead, he shrugged off his jacket, hanging it by the door like armor shed for battle. "Couldn't leave you two holding the bag. Farm's falling apart without Alex, ain't it?" Mom busied herself with coffee, black as midnight and twice as bitter, sliding a mug across the formica table scarred from decades of family suppers turned interrogations. He's out there somewhere. Your father says it's for the best." The church counselor. "Enough," Dad cut in, voice like gravel under tires. "Boy made his choice. Sodom and Gomorrah. That's on him. We raised him right. It's the devil's work." Thomas's fingers tightened around the mug, heat seeping into his palms like a brand. He wanted to shatter it, hurl the shards at the man who'd birthed him and beaten the questions out of him young. Instead, he sipped, the burn grounding him. "Devil's work," he echoed, tasting ash. Funny how that lines up with whatever don't fit your narrow-ass worldview. The room went still. The only sound the tick of the wall clock marking seconds like accusations. Dad's eyes finally lifted. Steel gray and unyielding. The same eyes Thomas saw in the mirror every morning. Mirrors that lied about the softness hidden beneath. "Watch your mouth." "This is God's house," Thomas laughed, a hollow bark that echoed off the knotty pine walls. "God's house? Or just yours?" He pushed back from the table, chair scraping like nails on chalkboard. His old room waited like a time capsule, posters of Metallica and mud-caked boots under the bed. The faint outline of where Alex's bunk used to be before he'd claimed the attic for privacy. He climbed the stairs heavy-footed, each creak a memory unearthed. Alex's laughter echoing from the shower, shared smokes on the roof under star-pricked skies, the press of bodies in the dark that blurred lines brothers weren't supposed to cross. Thomas stripped down in the dim light of a bare bulb, scars from childhood falls and bar fights mapping his torso like a roadmap to ruin. In the mirror, from waist up, he was all hard edges, lean muscle honed from wrenching engines, a constellation of freckles across his shoulders, the tattoo itching like a fresh wound. But his eyes betrayed him, hazel depths swirling with the storm he couldn't name. Sleep came fitful, dreams laced with shotgun blasts and Alex's pleas, until dawn cracked the horizon bloody. Mom had left pancakes cooling on the stove, a silent olive branch. Dad was already out in the fields, tractor rumbling like distant thunder. Thomas shoveled food in mechanically, the sweetness cloying against the bitterness lodged in his throat. He needed air, needed to move, so he grabbed his keys and headed for the garage, Hargrove's shadow looming larger now. A specter with a grudge. The old man's place was a mile down County Road 9. A ramshackle empire of rusted tools and conspiracy pamphlets stacked like cordwood. Thomas parked at the gate, chain links sagging under honeysuckle vines, and approached on foot, heart thudding a war drum. Hargrove was on the porch, rocking in a chair that groaned with every sway, a shotgun propped casual against his knee like an old friend. His eyes, milky with age and moonshine, fixed on Thomas with predatory gleam. "'Bout time you showed. Harlan's whelp," he wheezed, spitting tobacco juice into a rusted spittoon. "Heard your brothers sashaying down the Rainbow Road. Shame. Fine stock. Them boys, till the sin creeps in." Thomas's jaw clenched, fists balling at his sides. "What did you tell him, old man, before he split?" Hargrove's laugh was a wet rattle. Phlegm and malice. "Truth. That faggots like him rot in hell. And enablers like you burn brighter." He leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspirator's hiss. "Saw you too. You know. In the barn." Moonlight don't lie. The world narrowed to a pinprick. Thomas's vision tunneling as bile surged. Tino dipped down in the pit of his gut, but hearing it voiced was a blade twist. "You threatening me?" "Nah." Hargrove's grin yellowed like old corn. "Just prophesying. Town talks. But. And your daddy? He's got ears everywhere." Thomas turned on his heel, boots kicking dust, the walk back to his truck a gauntlet of rage. Prophesying. The words stuck like burrs, pricking at the fragile piece he'd stitched together in Cleveland. He revved the engine, tires spinning gravel into shrapnel, and aimed for the one place that still felt like sanctuary, Rusty's bar. On the edge of town where the jukebox spun Hank Williams and the locals drowned their demons in cheap draft. The bar was a time warp, neon signs flickering over scarred pool tables, the air thick with stale smoke and fryer grease. Thomas slid onto a stool, signaling for a whiskey neat, the burns sliding down like liquid fire. Jake was there. Of course, bartender with a buzz cut and a tattoo sleeve of Marine insignia. The kind of guy who'd arm wrestle you 1 minute and by the next round the next. They'd grown up thick as thieves. Jake, the golden boy quarterback who'd married his high school sweetheart and popped out 2 kids before the ink dried. "Tommy boy," Jake drawled, sliding the glass over with a wink. "Heard Alex pulled a Houdini." "You look like shit warmed over." Thomas knocked back the shot, the warmth spreading tentative fingers through his veins. "Family drama." "The usual." Jake leaned on the bar, forearms corded with muscle, his green eyes sharp under the low light. "Usual meaning Dad went full Leviticus?" "That old bastard's got more hate than a Westboro picket." He poured another without asking, their fingers brushing in that accidental way that lingered a beat too long. Jake had always been the safe harbor, rough edges hiding a softness Thomas envied. The straight man who never judged, never pried. They talked easy at first, circling the void like wary cats, the farm's lean harvest, the new craft brewery in Akron. Anything but the elephant in the room. But whiskey loosens tongues, and Jake's hand on Thomas's shoulder felt like an anchor in choppy waters. "You ever think about getting out? For real this time?" Thomas met his gaze, the bar's hum fading to white noise. Jake's face was close, stubble-grazed jaw and lips curved in that half-smile that promised trouble. "Every damn day," Thomas murmured, the words heavy with the weight of what he didn't say. "About you." "About us?" if there ever was. The night blurred after that, pool cues clacking, laughter barking from the corner booth where old-timers swapped war stories. Jake closed up late, flipping the sign to closed with a flourish, and they stumbled out into the parking lot, the gravel lot lit by a single sodium lamp casting long shadows. Thomas's truck loomed like a beast, and Jake clapped his back, pull turning to something stickier, warmer. "You need a ride?" Thomas asked, voice rough. Jake hesitated, keys jingling in his pocket, his wife's minivan a ghost in the distance. But walk with me? Just to the fence. They did. Shoulders bumping, the silence pregnant with unsaid things. At the chain-link divider to the fields, Jake stopped, turning to face him, the moonlight silvering his features. "Alex, he's lucky to have you watching his back." Thomas's throat tightened, the proximity electric, dangerous. "Someone's gotta." He stepped closer, breath mingling, the line between friends and more fraying like old rope. Jake's hand found his nape, thumb tracing the pulse point, and for a heartbeat, Thomas thought, hoped, this was the fracture point, the moment everything cracked open. Then headlights swept the lot, a horn blaring like Judgment Day. Jake jerked back, face paling. "Shit, that's Mandy. Early shift tomorrow." Thomas nodded, the cold rush of rejection stinging sharper than whiskey. "Go on, then." Jake lingered a second, eyes apologetic, then vaulted the fence and vanished into the night. Blown. Thomas leaned against his truck, the metal cool against his fevered skin, and lit a smoke with shaking hands. The ember glowed like a tiny rebellion, but inside, the storm brewed fiercer. Hargrove's words echoed, enablers burn brighter. And as the first drag filled his lungs, Thomas wondered how long before he set the whole damn world aflame. Dawn broke over Milford like a hangover, gray skies spitting drizzle that turned the dirt roads to mud slicks, mirroring the sludge in Thomas's veins. He woke tangled in sheets that smelled of dust and disuse, the ceiling fan whirring lazy circles above like a vulture eyeing roadkill. The clatter of breakfast plates pulled him under, Mom's voice a fragile thread weaving normalcy from the frayed edges of their life. "Up, Tommy," she said, sliding eggs and bacon onto his plate, her smile brittle as autumn leaves. Dad was already gone, off to the co-op for feed, leaving the kitchen a battlefield of unspoken grenades. Thomas poked at the food, appetite soured by the night's ghosts, Jake's touch lingering like a bruise, Hargrove's leer a fresh scar. "You talk to Alex?" she ventured, pouring coffee with hands that trembled just enough to slosh droplets on the saucer. Thomas shook his head, the lie slipping easy. "Line's dead." Probably ditched his phone. Truth was, Alex's last voicemail sat unplayed on his cell, time-stamped from a truck stop in Indiana. "If you're hearing this, I made it. Don't come after me. Tommy. Love you, like always." The like always hung heavy, a code for the tangled mess they'd made of brotherhood. Mom nodded, sinking into her chair with a sigh that carried the weight of 40 years married to a man carved from granite. "Your father's." "Processing. Pastor Ellis says prayer works wonders." Her eyes, faded blue like washed denim, pleaded for absolution he couldn't give. "Prayer," Thomas echoed, the word tasting like chalk. "Yeah. That fixed everything." He pushed his plate away, The scrape loud in the quiet. I need to check the fences today. Storm last week probably snapped a few. The farm stretched endless under the weeping sky, acres of cornstalk stubble like brittle bones. The red barn a sentinel against the horizon. Thomas grabbed wire cutters and pliers from the shed. The tools familiar as old lovers, grounding him in the rhythm of twist and mend. But his mind wandered treacherous paths, Alex's laugh echoing from the loft. The summer they'd spent rebuilding the tractor engine side by side. Grease-smeared hands brushing accidental intentional. It had started innocent, comfort in the isolation. Two boys against the world's grind. Then one night, thunder rattling the windows. Alex's hand on his thigh shifted the axis of their world. Thomas had whispered, even as his body betrayed him, arching into the touch. Why not? Alex's eyes, dark and defiant, had held his. It's us. Ain't nobody else gets it. They'd crossed that line in whispers and shadows, a secret rebellion against the catechism drilled into them Sunday after Sunday. It wasn't romance, not with flowers and sonnets, just raw, desperate connection, the kind that blooms in barren soil. When Alex came out to Mom, Thomas had stayed silent, the coward's crown heavy on his brow. But with Alex gone, the silence roared. Halfway across the back 40, he spotted the breach, barbed wire sagging low, snagged on a rusted fence post. As he knelt to splice, a truck engine growled in the distance, Hargrove's battered Chevy, kicking up mud like a middle finger. The old man pulled up short, window rolled down, his face a map of wrinkles etched by sun and spite. "Mornin', sunshine," Hargrove called, voice oily as sump water. "Out here playing house husband? Your brother's got the easy job, dancing for dollars in Cali?" "I hear." Thomas straightened, pliers dangling from his fist like a threat. "What do you want?" "Hargrove, ain't got time for your fairy tales." The old man's eyes narrowed, glee sparking like struck flint. "Fairy tales? Boy, I got Polaroids from that night in the barn. Grainy, but clear enough to show two silhouettes where there should have been one." He patted his breast pocket, the gesture casual as lighting a pipe. "Your daddy'd pay top dollar to see 'em. Clean the family name." Like, rage boiled up, hot and viscous, Thomas's vision spotting red. He lunged forward, gripping the truck's door frame, muscles coiling like springs. "You blackmailing me? Over what? Jealous? 'Cause nobody's touched your shriveled ass since Eisenhower." Hargrove's laugh died quick, face twisting sour. "Watch it. Quirling. Town knows your kind, spreads faster than pink eye. Ask your pal Jake. He and I had a chat last night. After you two lovebirds parted ways." Thomas froze, the pliers slipping to the mud with a wet thunk. The horn blaring, the hasty retreat, Hargrove's shadow everywhere, poisoning the well. "You leave him out of this. Too late." Hargrove shifted into reverse, gravel spitting. Secrets got a shelf life. He peeled away, leaving Thomas knee-deep in mire, the rain turning to a downpour that soaked him through. He finished the fence blind, hands numb, mind a whirlwind of contingencies. Confront Jake? Burn the Polaroids Hargrove didn't have? The farm blurred around him, a prison of his own making, and for the first time, staying felt like suicide by slow drip. By noon, hunger gnawed, But he bypassed the house for Rusty's again, neutral ground. Or so he lied to himself. The bar was quiet midweek. Daylight filtering dusty through blinds. Jake behind the stick-polishing glasses with mechanical focus. His eyes flicked up as Thomas entered. A flicker of warmth chased by wariness. "Double up?" Jake asked, already reaching for the bottle. Thomas slid onto the stool, dripping rivulets onto the floorboards. "Make it triple. And leave the chaser." They drank in companionable silence at first, the whiskey weaving a fragile bridge over the chasm. Jake's knee brushed his under the bar, accidental, deliberate, sending sparks up Thomas's spine. "Rough morning," Jake ventured, voice low. "You could say." Thomas swirled his glass, ice clinking like accusations. "Hargrove paid a visit. Mentioned you." Jake's polish rag stilled, color draining from his cheeks. "Son of a bitch cornered me after closing. Said he'd seen things about you and Alex." "Bullshit's what it is, Tommy." "I told him to fuck off." Thomas's gut twisted, relief warring with dread. "He claims pictures from the barn." Jake's laugh was forced, brittle. "That old coot couldn't focus a disposable camera." "Don't let him under your skin." He poured another round, their gazes locking over the rims, green on hazel. A current humming unspoken. Jake's hand covered Thomas's on the bar top, thumb stroking the knuckles in a gesture both tender and terrified. "Hey. Whatever this town's poison, we got each other. Always have." The touch ignited something primal, Thomas's pulse thundering. He leaned in, breath ghosting Jake's ear. "What if always means more than beers and bullshit?" Jake's exhale was shaky, his grip tightening. "Mandy." "The kids." But his body betrayed him, inching closer, the bar a flimsy barrier. The door swung open then, bell jangling like a gunshot, shattering the moment. Pastor Ellis strode in, Bible tucked under arm, his face a mask of pious concern. "Jacob." "Thomas. The Lord provides in mysterious ways, doesn't he?" His eyes lingered, probing, as if scenting sin on the air. Jake pulled back sharp, busying himself with napkins. "Pastor." "Usual." Ellis waved it off, settling at the end of the bar like a judge on the bench. "Just counsel, son. Heard about your brother's departure. The flock prays for his soul, and yours, Thomas. Temptation's a serpent, coiled tight." Thomas's blood ran molten, Hargrove's threats fusing with Ellis's scripture into a noose. "Temptation," he spat, standing abrupt. "Or just living. Save your prayers for the hypocrites." "Preacher." He stormed out, rain lashing his face like judgment, Jake's call trailing unanswered. Back at the farm, the afternoon dragged in chores, mucking stalls, oiling hinges, each task a penance for the fire building in his chest. Mom caught him in the barn at dusk, her apron dusted with flour, worry lines etching deeper. "Your father's talking to Ellis tonight. About expanding the youth group. To guide the lost." She wrung her hands, voice small. "You should come." "For family." Thomas paused, pitchfork midlift, manure steaming in the lantern light. "Guide the lost? Like Alex?" The words escaped barbed, drawing blood. Her flinch was visceral, tears welling quick. He chose that path. Tommy. We tried. You threw him out. The shout echoed off the rafters, shattering the dam. Thomas dropped the fork, advancing, his frame towering in the dim. Dad called him filth, and you stood there wringing your hands like it was just another rain delay. He's my brother. Ma. And you let him walk into the dark alone. She crumpled against a stall door, sobs muffled in her sleeve. I was scared. For him. For us. Your father, he's a good man. Deep down. The church says, fuck the church, Thomas roared, the profanity a thunderclap in the sacred space. It's poison, all of it. Twisting love into chains. Turned away. Chest heaving. The revelation burning his tongue. Not just for Alex, for himself. The boy who'd buried his own truths under layers of grease and grit. Upstairs later, phone in hand, he finally played the voicemail. Alex's voice filled the room. Weary but warm. Miss you? Tommy. Whatever happens, know it wasn't your fault. Be free. The line clicked dead, leaving Thomas adrift in the echo. Night fell heavy, the house creaking under storm winds. Dad returned late, reeking of coffee and cologne, Pastor Ellis's sedan crunching away down the drive. Thomas lay awake, plotting fractures, confront Dad at dawn, spill to Mom. The whole house teetered, and he was the fault line, ready to shear. Sleep claimed him fitful, dreams of barns ablaze and brothers entwined, until a crash yanked him bolt upright, glass shattering downstairs, followed by Dad's bellow. Thomas bolted down, heart in throat, to find the kitchen window spiderwebbed, a brick on the linoleum etched with spray paint, fags out. Dad stood frozen, fists clenched, Mom huddled in the corner like a wounded bird. Who? She whimpered. Thomas knew. The opening salvo. The house wasn't just falling, it was under siege. And as sirens wailed distant, Thomas stepped forward, resolve hardening like quenched steel. Time to fight fire with inferno. The sheriff's cruiser painted the night in staccato blues and reds, pulsing like a migraine through the rain-streaked windows. Deputy Harlan, Dad's cousin twice removed, a man built like a fireplug with a mustache that screamed 1980s cop drama, tramped mud across the threshold, notepad in hand. Vandalism, he drawled, snapping photos of the brick like it held state secrets. Happens more'n you'd think in these parts. Probably. Or drifters, Dad snorted, arms crossed over his John Deere T, the veins in his neck bulging like earthworms after a flood. Kids my ass. This town's gone to hell since the queers started marching. His eyes flicked to Thomas. Accusation unspoken but sharp as barbed wire. Oughta start locking up the deviants. Thomas leaned against the doorframe, arms folded casual, but his pulse thrummed a battle hymn. Deviants, he repeated, tasting the bile. Like who? That? The ones waving rainbow flags or the ones whispering behind him? Harlan cleared his throat. Awkward buffer in the powder keg. We'll dust for Prince. Dust off. 2. He clapped Dad's shoulder. The gesture brotherly, then nodded to Thomas. You see anything? Kid. Everything. Thomas thought, Hargrove's leer. Jake's touch. Alex's ghost. was out cold. The lie landed easy. But Mom's gaze bored into him. Her silence a scalpel. After Harlan left, the house settled into uneasy truce. Mom sweeping glass shards with mechanical sweeps. Dad pacing the living room like a caged bull, muttering about moral decay and standing firm. Thomas retreated to the porch, rain pattering on the tin roof like impatient fingers, a cigarette his only confessor. The brick's message glowed in his mind. Not threat but catalyst, the spark to his tinder. Dawn brought no mercy, sky leaden and unyielding. Dad was up before the rooster, slamming cabinets in search of coffee, his fury a living thing coiled tight. Thomas met him in the kitchen, shoulders squared, the air crackling with the promise of detonation. "We need to talk," Thomas said, voice steady as rebar. Dad paused, mug halfway to lips, eyes narrowing. "About the brick? Damn right." Towns circling the wagons. About Alex. The name dropped like a live wire, sizzling between them. Dad's face hardened, mug clunking down hard enough to chip the saucer. "That boy's dead to this family. You want to mourn? Do it on your own time. He's not dead." Thomas stepped closer, invading the sacred space of Dad's domain. "You threw him out like trash, 'cause he loved wrong. And now you're mad the trash comes back to bite." Dad's hand shot out, gripping Thomas's forearm in a vice that dredged childhood whippings from the depths. "What? That's filth. But Bible says a lot of things, you cherry pick." Thomas wrenched free, heat flushing his cheeks. "Thou shalt not judge? Honor thy father, but what about thy son? You broke him. And me? Staying silent? I'm as guilty as you." The slap landed crisp, Dad's palm cracking across Thomas's jaw like a thunderclap. Stars burst in his vision, copper blooming on his tongue, but Thomas didn't flinch, didn't back down. Mom's gasp sliced the air from the doorway, but he held Dad's gaze, hazel locked on steel, the mirror of their shared blood a cruel joke. "You're my blood," Dad growled, breath hot with rage. "Act like it." "I am." Thomas wiped his mouth, blood smearing his thumb. "Queer blood. Like Alex. And you can beat me black and blue, but it don't change facts." The confession hung, a guillotine blade suspended. Dad's face drained to ashen, eyes widening in horror, as if Thomas had sprouted horns. Not just truth. "Liar," he whispered. But the word cracked. Doubt's fracture line. Mom rushed forward, clutching Thomas's arm, her touch featherlight against the coming bruise. "Roy, please, out." Dad's voice was ice now, the storm breaking inward. "Both of you. This ain't my house no more." Thomas laughed, bitter and broken. "It never was. It's just a cage." He shrugged off Mom's hold, grabbing his keys from the hook. "Tell Alex I said sorry. When you find your spine." The door slammed behind him, a punctuation mark on the unraveling. He drove blind, wipers slashing at the downpour. Cleveland a distant mirage until Jake's text buzzed. "Heard about the brick. Meet at the quarry? Need to talk." The quarry was Milford's forgotten scar, a yawning pit on the town's edge. Chain-link fences sagging under kudzu. Water at the bottom ink black and bottomless. Thomas parked at the gate, climbing over with ease born of reckless youth, the rain turning the clay to slick danger. Jake waited on a boulder outcrop, hood up, silhouette etched against the gray. "You look like hell," Jake said. No preamble, pulling Thomas into a hug that crushed the air from his lungs. Rough hands on wet flannel, stubble scraping jaw, comfort laced with hunger. Thomas clung back, the quarry's echo amplifying his ragged breath. "Told Dad everything." Jake pulled away, eyes searching. How'd that land? Like a freight train. Thomas sank onto the rock, rain mingling with tears he wouldn't name. Slapped me. Kicked me out. Whole house of cards tumbling. Jake sat beside, thigh pressing solid against his. The contact a lifeline. "You're not alone, Tommy. Mandy knows about my..." "Does?" "We talked. She's scared, but open. Therapy? Maybe. For all of us." Thomas turned, hope flickering fragile. "You mean?" "Yeah." Jake's smile was tentative, dawn breaking through clouds. "If you're in." No more hiding. Their kiss was inevitable. Rain slick and desperate, lips crashing, hands roaming with the urgency of stolen time. Jake tasted of mint and whiskey ghosts, his body yielding then claiming, fingers tangling in Thomas's hair as they tumbled back against the stone. It was messy, real, teeth-nipping, breaths gasping, the quarry walls swallowing their moans like ancient confidants. Thomas arched under him, scars and tattoos bared, the vulnerability a gift wrapped in grit. They lay tangled, rain easing to mist, Jake's head on Thomas's chest, heartbeat a steady drum. "What now?" Jake murmured, tracing the compass tattoo with reverent fingers. "Fight," Thomas said, certainty crystallizing. "For Alex. For us. Burn it down if we have to." Town found them later that afternoon, Hargrove's poison seeping into the veins. Pastor Ellis called an emergency prayer vigil at the church, officially for community healing, unofficially a witch hunt. Dad had rallied the faithful, whispers of Harlan boy's shame buzzing like hornets. Thomas and Jake walked in together, hands brushing defiant, the sanctuary packed with familiar faces turned hostile. Ellis stood at the pulpit, Bible open like a shield. "Brothers and sisters, we face a plague, not of locusts, but of the soul. Sodom's shadow falls on Milford. We must stand." Murmurs rippled, eyes darting to Thomas in the back pew. Dad rose, voice booming. "My own flesh, twisted by the devil, purge or perish." Thomas stood then, Jake's hand squeezing his, a silent vow. "Purge," his voice cut through, amplified by the vaulted ceiling. "Like you purged Alex? Kicked him to the curb, 'cause he dared love." Gasps echoed. The room a tinderbox. Ellis blustered. "This is God's house." "No," Thomas shot back, advancing the aisle, Jake at his flank. "It's yours. Built on lies and fear. Alex is gay. I'm gay. And Jake? He's figuring it out. Same as me. You want to talk, devil? Look in the mirror, Hargrove's got pictures. Blackmails with him. And you're all too chicken shit to call him out." Chaos erupted, shouts, Bibles thumping, Mom's cry piercing from the side aisle. Dad lunged, but Jake blocked, the two men squaring off like prizefighters. But this ain't 1950. Hargrove himself burst through the doors then. "But shotgun in hand, not loaded. Thomas prayed. But the threat real. Lies. All lies from the sodomites. The blast was Blank's deafening pop. Confetti smoke, but panic reigned. Parishioners stampeded. Pews toppling. Ellis diving for cover. Thomas tackled Hargrove, wrestling the gun away in a tangle of limbs and curses. Jake pinning the old man's arms until Harlan arrived. Cuffs clicking like fate's gavel. In the aftermath, the church stood gutted, stained glass cracked. Hymnals scattered like fallen leaves. Dad slumped in a pew. Defeated. Mom at his side. Her hand on his knee, a bridge extended tentative. Tommy, she whispered as he passed. Bruised but unbroken. Forgive. Not yet, he said. So. But maybe. Said. Under clearing skies. Jake pulled him close. The town watching from porches and shadows. Whispers would turn to shouts. Jobs lost. Bridges burned, but in Jake's arms. Thomas felt the houses fall not as ruin, but release. Alex's text pinged then, heard the news. Proud. Coming home? Thomas typed back. Thumb steady, yeah. Bring the rainbow. The sun broke through, gilding the wreckage, and for the first time, Milford felt vast, not cage, but canvas. Weeks blurred into a fragile détente. Milford licking wounds like a kicked dog. The quarry kiss had rippled outward. Fractures spiderwebbing through the town's facade, boycotts at Rusty's. Prayer chains for Harlan redemption, anonymous letters stuffed in mailboxes like hate mail confetti. Hargrove rotted in county lockup. Charges of assault and extortion sticking like tar. His Polaroids revealed as bluff, grainy nothings from a hunter's trail cam. Shadows and suggestion. But the real quake was internal. Aftershocks trembling, foundations long cracked. Thomas moved into a trailer on the quarry's rim. Jake splitting time between it and the family home. Mandy's minivan a frequent visitor with kids in tow, wide-eyed negotiations toward polyamory. Or whatever shape their love would carve. It's messy, Jake confessed one night. Sprawled naked on the lumpy mattress. Thomas's fingers tracing the marine ink on his bicep. But real. Like us. Thomas kissed his temple. The salt of sweat and honesty. Messy's better than lies. From waist up in the moonlight slanting through blinds. He was a study in contrasts, bruise fading on his jaw like a lover's mark. Hazel eyes soft with wonder. Chest rising steady against Jake's cheek. The tattoo itched less now. The broken compass pointing not north, but inward. Dad's farm limped on. Hands hired from the co-op filling Alex's void. But the suppers grew sparse, Mom's invitations tentative texts. Dad's silence a wall slowly eroding. The first olive branch came unexpected, a knock at the trailer door. Dad on the stoop with a six-pack and eyes downcast. The beer sweating in the humid dusk. Can't fix it, he grunted, thrusting the pack forward like tribute. But triumph, Thomas took it. The cans cold against his palm. A bridge of aluminum and regret. Sit, he said, gesturing to the rickety porch chairs. They cracked open Miller's. The fizz a small detonation. And talked halting, about the war Dad fought in him. The bottle that waited on the other side, about Alex's birth. The joy twisted by church dogma into control. Thought I was saving you, Dad admitted. Voice gravel over glass. From hellfire. And now? Thomas pressed. Heart suspended. Dad's shrug was weary universe. Hell's right here. If you let it be. Pastors on leave, scandal with the youth fund. Maybe God's got a sense of humor. They didn't hug, Harlan's didn't do Hallmark, but the nod exchanged was sacrament enough. Mom followed days later, bearing pie and tears, her embrace fierce. Alex called. He's in Frisco. Waitressing at some dive. Hey. Tommy. Says thank you. Thomas held her. The lavender scent grounding as earth. Tell him we're even. The vigil's fallout birthed unlikely alliances. Jake's brother-in-law. A quiet accountant with his own buried doubts. Offering quiet coffees. The librarian. Rivera. Slipping Thomas dog-eared copies of Giovanni's Room with winks and whispers. Milford didn't transform overnight. No pride parades down Main Street, but the air lightened. Judgments whispered softer. The rainbow a faint but stubborn streak on the horizon. Alex returned in October. Leaves turning fire orange. Pulling up in a VW bus painted psychedelic swirls. The boyfriend in tow. With a grin like summer. The reunion was at the farm. Picnic tables groaning under Mom's pot roast. Dad manning the grill with awkward flips. Alex hugged Thomas first. Bone-crushing. His whisper hot against ear. Knew you'd crack the code. Little bro. Thomas pulled back. Clapping his shoulder. Eyes stinging. Had help. Jake waved from across the yard. Flipping burgers with the kids. Mandy laughing at some shared joke. The boyfriend, Riley, shook hands all around. His easy charm disarming even Dad's grunts. As dusk fell, fireflies winking like conspirators, the brothers slipped away to the barn. The hayloft a time machine of ghosts. They sat on the edge. Legs dangling. Beers clinking in toast. Missed this, Alex said. Missed you, Thomas nodded. The words he'd hoarded spilling free. What we did. It was wrong. Right? Brothers ain't supposed to. Alex's hand on his knee stopped him. Gentle. It was survival. Tommy. Not love, not that way. But it got us here. Whole. The absolution washed clean. Thomas's chest loosening like a rusted bolt giving way. Below. Laughter rose, Jake chasing kids with sparklers. Mom's story drawing chuckles from Dad. The house stood solid. Not down but remade. Walls papered in forgiveness instead of fear. Later. Under stars pricked like promises. Thomas and Jake walked the fields. Hands linked open now. No shadows to hide in. Brought the whole house down, Jake teased. Bumping shoulders. Thomas grinned. The weight lifted to flight. Yeah. And built a better one. In the distance. Milford slept uneasy but awakening. Its secrets unearthed into soil fertile for growth. Thomas breathed deep. The air sweet with possibility. Love not as lightning but steady flame. Burning bright without consuming. For the first time, home wasn't a cage, but a hearth. And in Jake's kiss, soft under the harvest moon, he found the compass true, not broken, but pointing home.